Hello and welcome to a simple way to a faster triathlon, or why eating and drinking is so important. There's a huge time savings to make at Ironman, in particular half Ironman if you get this wrong. It could also be the difference between finishing and not finishing. So we're looking at how much water you need to drink, how much fluid you need to replace and what you sweat. Electrolytes, vital, particularly sodium, with eating and drinking enough, and some very simple things you can do to make sure you do eat and drink enough when you're training and racing. I'm going to go into why eating carbohydrates will make you faster. I'm going to go through predicting how much you need to eat and drink. I'm going to go through what you need to do to practice it. We're also going to give you the skills to have a plan B. Hello and welcome to part 3, which is where I talk all about energy. If you've missed parts 1 and 2, part 1 was about water and sweat test in particular, knowing how much you need to drink to avoid dehydration. Part 2 was about the electrolytes, so the sodium in particular, problems you can get if you sweat too much salt and you don't replace that. Part 3 is about the energy. The body has 3 main energy sources. There'll be carbohydrates, which are your sugars, your fats, and the proteins. For all intents and purposes, we're going to ignore the protein. It's not something in a race or training situation we're going to worry about. So we're left with carbohydrate and fat. Big differences between the two. Probably the two biggest, the two I want to go through most. And carbohydrate, you don't necessarily need oxygen to use. So we'll all have heard the term anaerobic training. That's when we're not using enough oxygen, and some of the body's processes are working without that oxygen, and that will be burning carbohydrate as an energy source. Fat has to have the oxygen. So what you tend to find with that is the fat is used at the lower intensity levels. So if you're going out for a nice easy ride, nice gentle run, or just day to day, you're going to be burning mainly fat, because fat metabolism is relatively slow, and that's the second point I want to make. To get the energy from fat, there's a lot of fat in your body, there's more than enough for an Ironman, but you can't make use of it very quickly. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, you can use that energy very, very rapidly. We've all seen the sugar rush and the sugar crash if you go and eat a bar of chocolate, or kids get into the sweets at Halloween or Christmas, and suddenly they're all hyper and all up here, and then they have that crash as it all goes. That's that very sudden surge of energy that you get from carbohydrate metabolism that you don't get with fat metabolism. Huge amount of calories in fat. Kilo of fat is about 7,700 calories. So effectively, for what we're using it for, it's an unlimited fuel source. It's the oxygen that we worry about with fat, so it does limit us and it keeps us at that lower intensity level. Carbohydrate that we can use at the higher intensity level, we've only got 400, maybe 500 grams of it in the muscle that we can use. The body doesn't really store much carbohydrate. If you go and have too many sweets, too much cake, too many whatever, the body will convert that into fat, because for 99.9% of your day-to-day life, using that energy from fat more than quick enough. So we need to keep eating regularly during a training session or a run, or that fuel supply will be limited. Just want to go through something very quickly before I get any further. Lactate is a fuel source. So lactic acid is not there. Lactate is good, but the body needs to have mechanisms to deal with that free acid. Lots of different types of carbohydrate. The picture there of glucose molecule, they're all fairly similar. The 3 main ones that we need to concern with are 2 very simple sugars, which are the glucose and the fructose, which are just single molecules, and maltodextrin, which is a chain of lots, possibly hundreds of glucose molecules all together. And you'll see these in a lot of energy drinks and a lot of energy bars and chews. And the reason we're concerned with the 3 of them is it's all down to absorption rate. There are a limited number of ways that, or transports, that can take the glucose from your intestine, from your gut, into the bloodstream. And it's about 60 grams per hour is the limit of how much glucose you can absorb from your gut. The fructose one, there's a little bit of disagreement. They used to say it was about 30 grams per hour. It seems to have been upped recently to close to 48 grams per hour. But there's a limit to how much glucose we can absorb in an hour. And that's just down to the transporters that physically move the glucose, move the fructose from your intestine into your body. You're all thinking that size may matter. It's usually stated that 60-gram absorption limit per hour for glucose doesn't matter about your body size. Now, I don't fully agree with that. I think if you're a taller person, so I'm 6'4", 1m93, my intestines are going to be longer than someone who's 5'4", so 1m60 thereabouts. I'm going to have a longer intestine and I should be able to absorb more glucose in that longer intestine, assuming that every 10 centimeters of it is similar to another 10 centimeters. A taller person will absorb more glucose and fructose than a shorter person. Where size doesn't matter is it's nothing to do with body weight. So you can be the most muscular 6-footer out there. You're not going to absorb any more glucose than someone who's a lot thinner, because it's down to the intestines there. And you don't get more intestines just by having more weight. So I think height is an important factor. And I think for you taller triathletes, we can look at a higher figure. And you need a higher figure because you're going to be bigger. And I think for the shorter triathletes, you may not get up to that 60 grams. Doesn't matter because you're smaller. We just need to get up to your maximum. So a little bit of maths. So most people should be able to absorb 80 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So each gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories, 4 kilocalories. I'm going to be technical. This is what we normally refer to as a calorie in day-to-day life. So 80 times 4, 320 kilocalories, calories per hour. But if you're training and racing, particularly in a hard race, you can easily burn up to 1,000 calories an hour. So this 320 is only a small proportion. So where does the rest of it come from? That's your fat metabolism. So your fat provides the other 680, 500, depends how much you're burning. And then we're using the carbohydrates for that top end. Plus, we do have some stores in the body that we can call on. Ultimately, less carbs means you're burning more fat. So instead of 320 calories per hour, you're only getting in 120. You're going to make that other 200 calories up with fat. Shown earlier, fat is a much slower energy source. So you slow down. You've got more carbs going in, your body can make use of that energy quicker. So you will be quicker, you'll race faster. But it also allows for a better recovery. This gets very important when we're doing back-to-back training days. So if you don't fully recover after a long run on a Saturday, and you've not topped up your energy stores again, you're going to be struggling on that Sunday, maybe even the Monday. So those training sessions become poor quality. So more carbs helps your body to recover quicker, helps you get ready for a good quality training session the following day. I've mentioned it a few times already. Carbohydrates are a faster energy source than fat, and I'm going to keep mentioning it because if you take nothing away from this video other than this fact, carbohydrates are quicker. So if we can take more of those in, you will be quicker. Mentioned earlier, it's limited in stores, so your body can't store a lot. We store it as glycogen, and it is lots and lots, hundreds potentially, glucose molecules stuck together to form one glycogen. There's a limited amount of it in the body. There's a little bit in your liver, and there's probably 400 to 500 grams in your muscles. So again, the bigger triathletes, bigger athletes out there are going to have a little bit more because the muscles are bigger. But it is limited. That's all you've got. I picked a bigger triathlete at this point, so 100 kilos. So they may have the top end of the glycogen store, so 500 grams, something like this. So 500 grams times that 4 kilocalories per gram for carbohydrate is about 2,000 kilocalories you've got stored as carbohydrate in your muscle. And your body's not going to use the liver glycogen stores for your muscles. So we're limited to that. If you're the bigger triathlete and you're going through 1,000 kilocalories per hour, you've got about 2 hours energy stores there. Average finish time for a marathon, this is for a man, 4 hours 21. For a woman, it's about 4 hours 46, something like that. For a half Ironman, it's about 6 hours. For a full Ironman, it's just over 12 and a half hours. You've got 2 hours, 3 hours absolute tops of energy stores there. You need to do something to help, otherwise you're relying on fat. I said earlier, fat is a slow source of energy, so you slow down. The other issue we've got with this, and I mentioned it earlier with the training the following days, is it takes quite a long time to replace those glycogen stores. takes about 24 hours to refill your glycogen store. So a hard session one day, you're going to be suffering the following day, and that training session is not going to be so good. Little interesting fact, glycogen holds a lot of water. It's one of the reasons that your body weight will, particularly as an athlete, triathlete, endurance athlete, where your body weight will vary day to day. You're better rested, better recovery, and your glycogen stores have been filled. They'll attract a lot more water. You'll be heavier. When we're going to race day, I probably want you to be at that heavier end of those day-to-day fluctuations, because that means that your energy stores are topped up. Eating, drinking during a race and training and during recovery, very, very important if you're going to maximize your potential, if you're going to be the best athlete, the best triathlete that you can manage. Right, we need to take some carbohydrates. We need to see what we can get in. Which ones? So I mentioned we've got glucose, fructose, and maltodextrin. The maltodextrin will be converted to glucose. It might be listed separately on the ingredients, but essentially it is glucose. So that goes towards our 60 grams thereabouts that your body can absorb per hour. So what you need to do is just practice. You need to work out what is best for you. So individual. My best nutrition plan is not necessarily your best nutrition plan, is not necessarily your friend's best nutrition plan. So I would start off by measuring what you take with you, but also what you actually eat. A lot of people will take food on a long bike ride or a run, and it comes back with them and it's had a nice day out. So measure actually what you're taking and what you're eating. You can train your gut to absorb more. So say you're a poor eater, you've been eating maybe 40 grams of carbohydrates per hour on your long training rides. You can't suddenly up that to 80 straight away. You're going to end up with a bit of a dodgy gut. But we can train that gut to steadily increase the amount it can absorb. And we found the limit. We'll just bring it back just below the limit, because we want to try and absorb as much as we can. But if you steadily increase it, you can increase your tolerance, and we can get that level up. Some people will get well over 100 grams, 120 grams carbohydrates per hour, but it's through consistent and regular training once or twice a week. It will take a while to get this training done for your guts. Same as it does to boost your aerobic performance or your muscle strength. So what I would like you to do is, when you're getting 8 to 10 weeks out before you race, you're pretty close to where your gut should be. We can use those last few weeks to fine tune it. So we'll go back another 8 weeks. You're looking at about 3 to 4 months before your main race. You need to be seriously thinking about how much carbohydrates you can take in, and allow that time to train your gut. Do a couple of trial runs on your longest rides and your longest runs, ideally using the same nutrition, same products that you're going to take on race day. Have that proper dress rehearsal. Most people do not drink or eat enough. You need to test it first. You need to check, work out how much you are taking. But it's a fair bet that 90% of people watching this video are not taking in enough. Practice it. Work out what's best for you. See where your limits are. Push them a little bit further. Train that gut. Work out what you like to eat. Work out what agrees with you. Work out how to carry it. Practice it. Get to the point where, yeah, I can do this. I can do a 6-hour bike ride. Know what I'm taking. Everything's good. I feel stronger at the end. So where does this fuel come from? Where's these carbohydrates coming from? So 3 main sources. Drink it. You can have these gels, or you can take solid food. Each of them has their own plus points. Each of them have their own bad points. Energy drinks will come to first. Yeah, you can get hold of them in lots of places. They'll be on course. The course will provide a bottle on the bike, little cups on the run. Ask for the energy drink. You can get them in supermarkets, online, all kinds of places. A few flavours, can be a bit sickly though. That's part of the problem. And they can also get quite expensive, particularly if you're buying them ready-made. If you can get them as a powder, that's often a lot better, because you can vary the proportion depending on what you want. Working out your individual plan is a lot easier when you've got the powder. But I think they have their place, but I think they're as part of a wider combined energy plan. So my suggestion, test the version that's on the race course. Have a look in the race manual. If you can't find it and it's getting closer to a couple of months out from race day and it's not obvious, contact the race organizer a lot of these days with Facebook or emails, whatever. Ask them what the on-course nutrition is going to be, because if you can use what they are providing and you've practiced and you know you like the taste and you know it agrees with you, it's much easier to take the energy drink from the bottle or the cups on the course. I would prefer them. I tend to use them more in a shorter session in cooler weather. I think they're very practical in that condition where you're not worrying about high sweat rates, not having to worry about replacing a lot of sweat losses and fluid losses that way. Because in hot weather we need the water, so you've got to dilute them a little bit more. So it takes a bit more thought in that way. But I would use them as one energy source out of a number of different energy sources. Gels are probably, most of you will have heard of gels, most of you have taken gels. Again, they'll be on every race aid tables. There'll be gels there that you can grab. You'll see people carrying them around on race day. Very, very easy to carry, and they're a really quick source of energy. So they'll absorb nice and quickly, and you'll get that sudden burst. So if you're flagging, jelly's great, but they are expensive and they can make a bit of a mess. They can be tricky sometimes to open. You end up with a sticky packet. One thing that I dislike about them, probably more than anything else, they're not particularly environmentally friendly. Very easy to go littering with them, and you'll see on race day these gel packets all over the side of the road. And I think if you get spotted, you will get disqualified. They're not recyclable. They're just single-use plastics, and I think we should be moving away from them. So it's one reason to dislike gels. My suggestion, I would carry them as an emergency energy source. They don't take up much room. Very, very easy to stick a couple in saddlebag, little pocket when you're out running. Everything's going well. You're using other nutrition. Fine. They come home. They'll go out on the next run or ride. If you're just struggling and you're just tired and your energy's gone, or your friend's energy's gone, or you get stuck out in the middle of nowhere because you've had a couple of punches and the weather's getting bad, and you just need that burst to get you back. I think they're very, very good for that. So I would practice them during training, but I wouldn't use them too many times. I would be saving them largely for race day. So they're my emergency stash. On the run, yeah, often you'll find these are easier to absorb. So probably more likely to use them on the run than on the bike, and I would try and save them for the run if possible. Again, try out the brand that's offered by the race. One less thing for you to worry about. But test them first, find out what they are, get a few in, share a box with some friends who are doing the same race, and just make sure that you like the taste and they agree with them. But don't worry about taking your own preferred brand with you. So short races, fast races definitely, and towards the end of a longer race, that's the best time I would say for taking gels. Solid food, I love a bit of solid food. It definitely tastes the best. Get it pretty much anywhere. Lots of variety, you get sweet and savoury. A lot to be said for that. Can be harder to carry. It's definitely harder to try and fit a pie or a pasty when you're out for a run. But there's ways and means around that. I would avoid too much fibre. You don't want to be necessarily on a long run or race day. You don't want too much fruit. We don't want to be using the porta potties if we can help it. And they can be harder to eat, particularly if you're dehydrated. But of course, you all watched part one where I talked about water, and part two I talked about electrolytes. So none of you who've watched this video are dehydrated. It's not going to be too bad to eat. But I don't think those cons outweigh the pros. I think taking some solid food on your longer training rides and some of your runs and on race day, very, very good idea. So my suggestion, yeah, brilliant for training rides. Try something different. Slice of cake, packet of jelly babies, jam sandwich, peanut butter sandwich. Stick a little pie or a pasty in your pocket, and they're great as a treat. I've done Ironmans where I've had a solid bit of proper food as my treat after say 2 hours and 4 hours, 5 hours on the bike, and you look forward to that. And it's right, I'm going to get through to this point, or 30 kilometers on the every 30 kilometers on the bike. Yeah, I'm going to give myself a little treat. I'm going to have a piece of flapjack or a bit of shortbread, and it's just something different for you to take in. Whatever you do, practice it. But I would use eat more solid food on the bike when your body's able to cope with it, and then probably use more liquid foods on the run, where it's harder to absorb, it's harder to chew. There is always the option for making your own, sort of the DIY option, particularly with solid foods. lots of recipes out there for rice balls, chewy bars, shortbread, flapjack, all kinds of things. There are whole books dedicated to portable foods for cyclists in particular. You can even make your own homemade energy drink or gels. It can be as simple as a bit of sugar or honey, a bit of salt, some fruit juice, maltodextrin powder. You can buy a big bag of that really cheaply. It does take a little bit of thought to get your ratios right, but it's a very cheap way to provide your own equivalent with that, and you can tailor it to your own needs. So if you're that way inclined, you like a bit of cooking, you like a little bit of science, yeah, go for it. It's very, very good. Get in touch. I can give you some suggestions of where to start and how to practice this. Caffeine, that could have a whole video all by itself, and I will do one of those videos in the future. Need to think about the days before a race. A couple of reasons. One, if you're racing away from home, you're in a hotel, you're in a strange place, what's the food going to be like? We don't want to be getting food poisoning if we can help it, or eat something that's going to upset your stomach. We also want to avoid too much fibre, because those porta potties on race day are not a pretty sight if we can help it. So be careful, not too much fibre for probably 2-3 days before the race, and just be careful about the quality of where you're getting the food. Cooking yourself, that's fine. You're eating out, I'd go to a more respectable establishment and try and get something that's fairly straightforward to cook. Wise coach once told me that the perfect pre-race food for the day before is a pizza. You can get it pretty much anywhere in the world. Cheap, you get lots of different flavors. It's suitable for vegetarians and vegans, get those versions as well. It's very easy to cook well, get a nice tasty pizza. It's very difficult to get any kind of food poisoning from it. You know what you're going to get. I think that's a great suggestion. It doesn't have to be pasta. So we need to work out how much carbohydrate you're eating. And I mentioned earlier how much you're actually taking with you, but how much you're actually eating. And there is a little bit of science here. You need to have a look on the back of the gel packet or the packet of sweets or cake, or weigh out the recipes and see how much you're actually taking. But it's one of these things that you don't have to do all the time. You write it down and you work out what it actually is. So you know that your energy gel contains 30 grams of carbohydrates, fine. If you know that your normal portion size of shortbread that you've made, you can work out that total recipe contains 12 portions. Just divide the total ingredients by 12. You've got the amount of carbohydrate in one portion. Nutrition plan and what's best for you is what is best for you. And that isn't what's best for me. It's not what's best for Alistair Brownlee, say. It's what's best for you. And I would be very, very wary of following any fads. Work out what's best for you, not best for someone else. Practice it. Not quite happy with this bit, let's just tweak it. Sometimes it's a complete change, but just tweak it, adjust it until you get a list of foods, a list of energy drinks, a list of gels that you like and are good for you and work for you, and you like the taste and you can afford and you can get hold of easy enough. Write it down. Right, you're looking for, say, 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. It's going to be one gel. It's going to be one of your standard mix of the energy drink, and it's going to be 6 jelly babies, or it's going to be one portion of 1.5 portions of your shortbread. And you can mix and match because you've done all the maths first. You've got it all written down. You know what you need to do on race day. You're going to grab one from here, one from there, one from there. That's your nutrition plan for that particular race. It might take you half an hour. You do it during the tapering because you've got all this worked out before any training. During that taper week, you spend the half hour that you're not training so hard that week, and you work out exactly what you're going to eat. So thank you very much. I will put links for part 1 and part 2 and the full video again in the description. So if you haven't seen part 1, which is on the water and sweating, or part 2, which is on electrolytes and salts, go and have a look at the description, go and watch those videos. I would love to know who has been watching to the end of this video, what you've got out of it, what races you're doing, what training you're doing. So send me a message, have a look on Facebook, Instagram, go find the website. I'm just fascinated to know how I may have helped, or I've given you one bit of information that was game changer for you, or made you think, yeah, I need to do something about that. Let me know. It'd be brilliant to hear from you. So thank you very much for watching. Please do get in touch, and you've been watching A Simple Way to a Faster Triathlon. Thank you.